Welcome to George Crafts. Today we're going to make Hedwig's tail. This begins in working in rows rather than rounds. So begin with a slip knot and pop that onto your hook. Pick up your yarn and now you need to make your foundation chain. So that just means doing simple crochet stitches, pulling the yarn through the loop that's on your hook. Make the correct number that it says in the pattern. So once you've made your foundation chain, if you look at the crochet, you'll see on one side the stitches make these little V marks, so they're all pointing like this, and on the other side you've got little bumps. Okay, so they look kind of like this. So you need to start making double crochets into the bumps, not the V's. So you're going to miss out the first bump and then you're going to put your double crochet into the next one. So miss out the one here closest to your hook and then go into this one. So just pop your hook through, bring the yarn back towards you and then close the two loops that are on your hook, and then move into the next hump to make the next stitch. And so on. You'll notice that I'm using a different crochet hook. That's because I lost my plastic one. I'll try and find it for another video, but in the meantime just using this metal one. It's the same size hook, so haven't changed anything technical about it. Okay, so carry on making the double crochets into each stitch as the pattern says, and I'll catch up with you for the next stage of the pattern. So once you've done a double crochet into each of the stitches, it should look like this. You need to make 3 more double crochets into the stitch closest to your slip knots. So just pop your hook back through the space you went in and make your double crochets in the same way you made them on the rest of your chain. Okay, so now you've done that, it wants you to work down the other side of your foundation chain. So that's the side with the little V's on, not the humps. So what we need to do is make double crochets into each of the stitches, and then in the last one we'll make 2 double crochets. Now it's looking like this. Just have to pop 2 double crochets into the last stitch here. Okay, that's what your crochet will look like after you've done rows 1 and 2. You should have 30 stitches all together. And what it wants you to do is now work in rounds around this strip of crochet that you've made, so you're sort of making an oval shape. So we'll grab a stitch marker or a spare piece of yarn and we'll just pop that in the right place. So this time I'm using a spare piece of yarn, really just to show you what to do if you don't have any stitch markers. So just fold it in half, pop your hook through the last stitch of the crochet that you made, and use your hook to pull the spare yarn through, and then through the loop just pop the tails, and then that marks your place the same as a stitch marker. Okay. So now we've come to round 4. We've gone back to our unit in square brackets with a multiplier. We talked about this bit in the first part of our Making Hedwig video series, so we'll just recap again. So inside the square brackets is your unit. So for this particular case, the unit is to make a decrease and then make a certain number of double crochet stitches, in this case 13. So our decrease turns 2 stitches into 1 stitch, add 13, and they want you to do that twice. So 1 and 13 is 14, times by 2 is 28, which is the number of stitches in the round that you should have, and is the number in rounded brackets at the end of that row of the pattern. So this is what your crochet should look like before you start round number 4. You'll notice that I've now moved my spare yarn so that the tail's poking up through the top of the last stitch of that round. So then we'll move into making our decrease first of all. So I'm going to pop my hook in here, bring the yarn back through that stitch, and then pop my hook into the second stitch, bring the yarn back. I've now got 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to close them all at the same time. And then I make my double crochets as normal to finish off my round. Once I've made the unit once, I'll repeat it again, and that will bring me back to my stitch marker. So have a go at that yourselves, and the same goes for row or round number 5. And then 6 to 10 is just making 1 double crochet. 11 is back to making units and multiplying them. 12 to 13 is just 1 double crochet in each stitch. And I'll catch up with you for round 14, which is the final round. So by the time you get to row 14, your tail should look something like this. So basically it just looks like a little bag with a slightly wider bottom than the top. I don't know if you can see that there. So all you need to do now is the final row, row 14, and it looks quite complicated because there are lots of numbers and abbreviations, but it's not. It's quite simple. All you need to remember is wherever it says DC followed by a number, say for example 4, if it was written as DC 4, you would put 4 double crochets, so that's 1 each, into the next 4 stitches. So DC followed by a number just means make 1 double crochet into 1 stitch for that number of stitches. If it says decrease, that means turn 2 double crochets into 1 double crochet. So I'll start off row 14 so you can see what I mean. So if you're following along with your pattern, we're going to double crochet 1, double crochet 2, and now we're going to make our decrease. So 1, and then put on an extra loop from the next stitch, so you have 3 loops on your hook, and close those 3 loops together to make your next stitch, and then we're going to put more double crochets in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 'This is what happens if you've got really cheap wool. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it wants you to make another decrease. So again, pull the yarn through 1 stitch, pull the yarn through a 2nd stitch, and bring all our loops closed. And then all you've got to do is just put 1 double crochet in each stitch until you get to the end. Okay, so do that and I will catch up with you in a minute. So now we're at the end. And our pattern tells us to fasten off and leave a long tail for sewing. We're not going to stuff the tail. And then the pattern says sew the edges together, sew the tail to the body, and embroider your speckles. I will show you how to do that at the very end of this Hedwig video series. So when we've made all the pieces, I will sew them all together at once, and then at that point I'll show you how to sew up the end as well. Okay, so the end of this tail and any other pieces that need sewing up, so things like the body and the feet and things. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video or if it was useful to you, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and if you want to get information for when we release our new videos, make sure you turn on post notifications as well, so you can do that by hitting the bell icon just below this video. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please do get in touch with us. You'll find us on Facebook, on Instagram and all the other social media platforms. Until then, take care. Bye bye now.